guys, this is Elizabeth from ID Technologies. We are back with our podcast, Tech Talk number 2, our joint podcast with BioTeam. We are continuing our overarching theme of advances in technology and how it is used in everyday life. But on this one, we thought it would be a good idea to kind of take a step back and talk about how all of us got to be where we are in our roles. Just trying to show people that there's not one specific path you have to take to get into technology, and then also explain the various different careers that exist in the technology industry. And so I will have my two counterparts here introduce themselves, and then we will take it from there.
Awesome. My name is Ari Berman. I'm CEO of BioTeam.
My name is Julia. I am actually a coworker of Lizzie's, and I am a product specialist at ID Technologies and also a retired professional geologist.
So as you can see, very different path to where we are now. I'll have Ari kind of talk to the different careers in technology, because I think a big issue and kind of for the future generations is that's such a huge word. What does that mean? A lot of people think it's maybe sitting behind a computer or just doing that, but there's so many different facets to it. So I'll have him kind of do that and tell his story of how he got to be the CEO of this awesome company. So take it away.
Great. Okay, so yes, again, Ari Berman, and my path to technology has been really weird and windy, and it's a good example of how you can either stumble into it or how you can get into technology. Even if you're late in life, you think that it's an interesting thing to get into. It's really important to get into technology right now and for us to interest more people in it, because technology is continuing to expand into all of our lives in ways that are perceptible and sometimes not. And so we really need other people to get into tech careers. So my background, I started at University of Texas at Austin as an undergrad, and we're actually sitting here at University of Texas in the Texas Advanced Computing Center. They're one of the premier supercomputing centers in the United States and the world. And I started myself in a career in biology. Started off as a pre-med student, and was always really interested in life sciences and tech and how that works. But I put myself through undergrad working for the computer science department here at UT, and during that time, my friend and I heard about this new type of technology called Beowulf clusters, which was a new form of supercomputing that allows you to build a supercomputer out of pretty much any type of computer. So we took a bunch of Dell workstations and put them together, and this is when Linux first came out. Installed Linux on it and created a small cluster out of it. And as far as we know, it was the first commodity supercomputer built in the state of Texas in 1994. So that's how old I am. That sort of launched a whole new side of my career, which, you hear supercomputer and it's kind of this scary term. It's got to be this huge big thing, and they are huge big things. There's about 12 of them in the room next door. But the real thing is that it's just a way to really solve really big problems. And so that sucked me into that rabbit hole. And I got involved with the initial planning and design of TAC a little bit. And then I finished out my undergraduate in biology, and then I decided to go further and went through and got my PhD in molecular biology with a focus on neuroscience. So again, not computing, but the work I was doing in the laboratory, I was collecting tons and tons of data. And so I used my computing background to help pull those things together. Now, in 1999, 2000, that was sort of a new thing. Now there's a whole area that describes that called data science and bioinformatics. But back then it was kind of a new thing. So I taught myself how to program, et cetera. And then I went to my postdoctoral fellowships, which were furthering neuroscience, mostly in Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease, continued to use computing. And then in 2012, I found this crazy company, BioTeam, that sort of took biology, science, and technology and shove them together into a consulting practice that helps bridge the gap between IT and science. And so I joined in 2012 as a consultant, worked as a consultant for a number of years here, and then just started growing areas of the business. And the prior CEO in November 2019 decided he wanted to step down, and they asked me to take over. And so here we are. So there's lots of ways through this, and I think we'll come back to that in a little bit.
Great. Julia, do you want to talk to your kind of journey and as a new in the technology industry and kind of what brought you here and why? I think you have an interesting story of kind of shifting careers and why you did that.
Yeah, I would love to. And you know, to build on what Ari was saying, the tech world now touches everything. So many things that you wouldn't think of. I actually had learned how to program and to code as a geology major back, you know, over 10 years ago. Even just to make maps, I was having to do everything command line. And in order to get the data that I needed, I had to learn how to, you know, obtain it offline, how to process it. So I actually learned how to write code, write programs, and manage huge amounts of data, and learn how to do quality control data through a degree that most people think of as just rocks for jocks.
You're looking at
me, which there's absolutely plenty of that. And that gave me a whole other perspective and really expertise on how does our technology and our data affect us in the field with our boots on the ground, and as well as in the office. And so I was and now that we have these computing centers that help us process larger data sets more quickly, I sort of came up in the world of resolving two-dimensional problems three-dimensionally. So while both of my degrees say geology, which because they're geology degrees, that's their application, I really spent most of my education on a computer. And then so first I just wanted to point out that it touches every possible field you could think of. And then the next thing that happened was, after my graduate degree, I was like, I don't want to sit around and code all day long and not talk to people. I love working with people. I love solving problems. I like seeing how things fit together. So I left academia to go into a geotechnical engineering world. And then, even in that field where I had a lot of great experience of managing how an older industry adopts new software and technology in applied fields, I realized I wanted something a little less niche. And basically my college best friend / coworker told me she thought I'd be a great fit here. And so now I'm a product specialist, but I'm in this very interesting role in this tech community where I straddle sort of the engineering and the sales side. So I get to be a part of these cool, like, solving sales problems because I like the fast pace. I like working with the people. I like seeing how do we solve different needs? How do we do it the smartest, most efficient way based on what we know is upcoming, et cetera. But then I also have landed kind of in this really special and interesting niche role where I have an eye for overarching problems. So from start to finish of a sales process. So I work kind of in the DevOps side and with the engineers, and how do we reduce our inefficiencies, and how do we automate things? How do we scale up? And so I get to touch kind of every part of our industry, and I've actually gotten to use part of my coding background to assist in some of this. While my degree say geology and my job says product specialist. So there's just all these different super fascinating ways you can be in the tech world. And even at our company at ID Technologies, where we specialize in hardware, I still get to use some of my coding background, and even just understanding there's these different roles and under each umbrella. There's a lot of different types of, tech jobs within the tech community. And that was something that I was also hoping that Ari could talk on, is so many of us, when we think of the tech world, we think of, can you make an app? And a lot of our brains sort of stop there. I'm plenty guilty of that. So I just wanted to reach the next generation of people, that there's so much more than that out there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. So there are tons of careers in technology. And yes, you hit on it. I think everyone today basically says, you know, this is technology. This is what I want to use. There's an app. I can just click on it, right? And it gives me what I need like this. The world's knowledge at my fingertips, which is both good and bad. But you know, if you really think about, let's think about your cell phone for a second, right? What is it? It is an extensive platform, right? When you build an app on this, the app doesn't have to know anything about the radios that are in this, how they connect to the cell towers, how they authenticate and handshake, where those signals go, how it then goes out to the internet, so how the internet works, you know, which you know, other servers and areas in the cloud that all this information is happening round trip in under a second, right? So how do you do all that? So if everyone in the world is going into building mobile apps because that's the cool thing, eventually the platform dies because the platform has to be maintained. Cell phone towers, you know, cross-country fiber optic cabling, satellite feeds, you know, building these, you know, the radios and how they work and everything. And it's true of pretty much everything. And so, and, you know, as Julia pointed out, you know, there's lots of need for sales. You know, you got to explain to people what these things are. Most of our customers, you know, for instance, they don't necessarily know what technology they need to use in order to accomplish their goals. And in our case, that would be biomedical research or clinical trials or, you know, healthcare industry type of stuff, which is massively scaling into the computing world. Geology has been, you know, deep in the computing field for, you know, 40 years. My dad's a geologist. And so, you know, so I've been, you know, experiencing that for a really long time. And in fact, you know, a lot of the original applications of supercomputing were both in materials, you know, computational fluid dynamics, like, you know, figuring out how aerodynamic things are, for instance, and geology. You know, like reservoir simulations, how fluids flow through rocks, or oil and gas, right? Exactly. So anyway, so there's a lot of different ways into here. I tend to focus on the science aspect, but you know, let's think about the cloud. Everyone knows about the cloud. What exactly is it? That's probably our next topic.
Yeah, our next topic.
But it's really, really complex, and it's not the only way to use computing. You know, you can learn how to design and build things like supercomputers, which are extensive in this building, for instance, right? They have the 8th fastest supercomputer in the world that we know of here, because, you know, the classified ones aren't published. So anyway, you know, so there's a lot of different things, and then, you know, there's a lot of people, right? So there's a lot of people jobs, because no matter how complex the computers get, you know, our last podcast was on artificial intelligence, and, you know, we made it pretty clear on that podcast that there's zero intelligence in that, right? You know, it's actually just, you know, computer models and mathematics and other sorts of algorithms that help make things easier and automate things. So it still requires people at every aspect of this, and you need people to help lead people and guide people, encourage people to grow in their careers, and then, you know, you need, you know, businesses, you need, you know, policies, you need laws, you need all these things.
User experience design. Designers, just even where you're connected to the tech directly, but you need to understand people and how they interact with it, because tech isn't useful if we don't know how to use it, right? So like we can all touch in the cloud because we have technology that was designed with a user interface designer that understood how simple we are.
No, it's a great point. You know, one of the things we focus on a lot is most technology is built from the technology standpoint, right? Meaning that we build a thing, okay? And then we have uses that we think it's going to be used for, but we build the thing because we wanted to build the thing. The user experience actually comes at it from the opposite view. What are you trying to do? What problems are you trying to solve? In science, what science are you trying to get done? You know, are you trying to Here's a good example that's relevant. Are you trying to figure out all the different variants of COVID-19 that are out there right now? Okay, so that involves genomic sequencing, sample prep, sample collection, and all those sequences then have to be transmitted into a common format, a common database, and analyzed against each other to see if there's significant enough differences to call it a new variant, right? And so, there's all sorts of paths into that. So how do you design tech in order to serve certain particular parts of what the world needs?
And I was just gonna say, there's all the selfishly from the sales side of things, there's the technical and more engineering people, but there's also, the sales aspect like you're talking about to everything that's going on. And I mean, that's just as important. So if you're not like a very technical person, you can still get involved in the technology field. And I was gonna say, like, I had a random, like I was a psych major, minored in criminal justice and child development, wanted to be a profiler. And then I just happened to get lucky and was offered a job at Mellanox, and I think an HPC company, which is actually where I first met Ari, and we worked together on one of the large NIH supercomputer there, BioWolf. But I think like just 2 lessons in general. One comes from yours, where you can take your skills from whatever background you have and apply it to the technological field. And then number 2, you don't need to know what exactly you want, or because I never thought I was going to be in this industry, but I knew I liked solving problems. I liked talking to people, and I want to learn new things every day, and it's an awesome industry to be in it just for that. And like just coming here and touring the supercomputer and working with people like Ari and BioTeam, it's great.
Yeah, we put a lot of pressure on this idea that you need to know exactly what you like to do, or if you're not madly just in love with math or coding, that maybe tech's not for you. And and that's just not true. It's like Lizzie was saying, it's a very interesting place to be solving problems, and the problems are always going to be changing and new because technology advances so quickly. So even if you just have some sort of knack for people or problem solving in any way, there's so many ways to touch the tech world that are very exciting. And also, if you feel like you're not good at math or certain things with computers, then I would ask you maybe try again with a different teacher, or learning it on your own, or etc. Sometimes we get that in our head, but the pressure that we put on people, that if you don't know by 17 when you're applying for college exactly what you want to do, like take a deep breath, it's fine, like whatever makes sense for you. And then until you get experience in what you like to do and how you like to work, there's no way for you to know specifically exactly what you want to do. And the few people in the world that have been able to do that, that's so amazing for them, but that is not the majority of us. And that's kind of like our goal with this specific episode, is to kind of introduce us so we don't feel as random, but also just to point out, like, yeah, just so you know who we are. But also, this isn't something to just learn about tangentially. This is something very accessible to everybody. And so we kind of wanted to share our weird stories to just let you know this, like, come join tech teams. It's super fun. It's exciting. You get to have conversations that are real world, and can touch any industry, healthcare, geology, defense, whatever thing you have a passion for. There's going to be some huge need for tech people within that industry.
Absolutely. And one of my mentors in graduate school used to say, he was talking about grants, in which you have to apply for a grant and explain the whole research project and what you think is going to come out of it in order to get funded for it. He used to say, if you actually accomplish what you proposed in your grant proposal, it shows a significant lack of creativity. And that's because there's no way to know the outcome of research. Yeah. And you know what? There's no way to know the outcome of your career. It actually is a direct application. There's multiple roads, multiple paths forward, and there's no singular path that's the right path. You can try multiple things. My first ever job was as a golf caddy, so we can do that. My second job was at Taco Bell, right? So so we can go all the way back if you want. But anyone can do this stuff. Julia said it well too, is that you don't have to consider yourself good at math or computers or anything like that, usually it's just you haven't been exposed right if you think that.
Just ask
Anyone
questions,
can do this.
get involved.
Some of the most creative people that I know that wouldn't really consider themselves math people in any way are some of the best tech people that I know. And maybe they learn just enough coding so they understand kind of what more of the capabilities are, but they're really artists more than you would think of them as an engineer or as a technical person. So there's really ways to go through this from any angle if you have a desire, you know, but it's so exciting and it's going to have to continue to be cutting edge. So it's definitely something to at least consider, and whatever job you have or industry you're in, is there something in it that could be improved? Because you should be paying attention to that, because it's going to be a technology that probably helps that, and you're the first person that is putting your finger on larger inefficiency. You know, that's an important thing to start paying attention to, and you could start being a solution to all these different sorts of problems.
And a big advantage to coming into any tech industry from another industry, those tend to be the people who can explain things better to people, right? Because they have a really right. You know, they have a really large background of talking to a lot of different types of people, and you know, if you end up just really technology focused the whole time, sometimes it's really hard for them to explain it because their world has always been that. But if you have a greater exposure and diversity, which is really important, women, minorities, have not been encouraged over time to join in this area. I'm saying right now, please do. We need that diversity. The technology has to serve everybody. It requires a diversity of viewpoints.
And adding new ideas and everything. You know, we've any culture that thinks nothing wrong with it, but has more of a similar education and background is just going to have more similar ideas. And anybody that can come in that's different with any different perspective, you never know how beneficial that can be and what that can add. And so everybody, it's not that diverse of an industry right now, and it will only get better as we diversify it, as we move forward.
And it also doesn't take, to a point you just made, it doesn't take any type of education. There are, some of the most talented people I know barely made it through high school. It just has to be a passion of yours. Anyone can learn.
Yes, passion's right.
Outside of that.
Yeah. We were just talking before. We have a friend that was a lead user design experience guy over at Uber and didn't graduate from high school, but he also liked messing around with his computers, and he liked seeing how people interacted with technology. And if you can do the work and be passionate about it, everybody loves that, then you have an opportunity. Then
I know. I think that's been great. Again, reach out to us if there's anyone that we're here. I want, again, more women in tech.
Me too.
But if you have questions, you're gonna feel stupid. It's a new thing, but you need passion. And if you have that, you can get into it very easily.
Yeah, everything is always changing. So also it's really okay to feel stupid and ask questions with something we deal with every day. And that's part of the future longer term goal of this podcast, is to say, okay, here's this thing that everybody talks about. So you feel like you should understand it, like, the cloud. And so it almost makes you nervous to ask, wait, so what is that? And so we want to have those conversations. So these things that are, created by these brilliant, passionate people but that maybe have a little bit less language for explaining it to other people that aren't as directly involved. We want that to be something that more of us can just understand, and it feels more tangible and digestible, and that will also just help you be more excited about the capabilities and working on it and being a part of our tech community.
Yeah.
As a whole.
Yeah, well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think, there's a ton here.
Yeah.
We
don't want to bore you guys too much.
All kinds of diversity is the only thing, not just women. We want all
kinds of
diversity.
All kinds of diversity.
Not just
everybody.
Women, all the.
So. all backgrounds, everybody. It's okay to feel dumb, as they said. There are no stupid questions, just unanswered ones.
Yep.
So ask the questions.
Oh, that's a great answer.
That's good. So we will see you next month for ID Tech Talk 3, and we will be back on probably talking about the cloud and in a way, that people can understand it.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.